my original guitar case for the Gibson, and down through there, amps, there's a Vox Continental organ. I'm Geoff Simpson, or born Jeffrey Roger Simpson. During the last war, or the end of the war, it was more or less over. To my mum and dad, who was Walter, Wally, and Ethel Simpson. Previously Barker, she was. My first memory, well, it was the actual first memory, but I do remember sitting in a high chair, dropping crumbs on our cat and giggling, which set the whole family off, giggling, apparently. But you see how much I actually remember that, and how much has been told by my sisters that I don't know, but I do actually, it emerges between my knowledge of my life and what I can remember. Is a blurring here somehow. I say I was influenced, when I was really, really young, I was influenced by my dad and mum music, which was from all the films that were coming out at that time, because we used to go to this fabulous, the building's still there, the Astoria. I don't think it's called, that's called the Rainbow now, I think, Finsbury Park. And my mum and dad used to take me to see, I saw lots of films there, you know, with my mum and dad. There's the music from the films, really. One that sticks out is Singing in the Rain, because that's a good song anyway. And I've recently seen it on television anyway, it's all in colour. I think that was a good film. And of course the song sticks out, da 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 da, you know. So that was a good song. That's before rock and roll and everything. Well, yeah, but the music I liked at first that got me into music was rock and roll. Would people like Elvis Presley. You know, upstairs I've still got the original albums I've got. I bought the first album I bought in 1958 when I was 14, I guess. It was Elvis Golden Records, and I still prize it. I never play it, but I still got it upstairs. Elvis song. Oh Christ, I don't know. I suppose it must have been Heartbreak Hotel, but then no, it probably wasn't. It's probably a Blue Suede Shoes or something, which was with. You know, it's more instantly memorable. But that was all the rage at the time when we were really young, and that really from about that I wasn't really interested in schoolwork. All I was interested in was that music from America, when America was great. One of the best. He's asked me what one of the best memories was. I think if I go back far enough. The coronation of 1953, when the Queen, young Queen, was crowned. I must have been 9, but we all had a big party in the flats where I lived called Mildura Court. They're still there in near Crouch End, and my dad, who loved art, he liked painting and everything. He was very active in the decorations they put up, because they made toy soldiers and painted them. Not toy soldiers, cardboard soldiers, and painted them. And how they were guarding the entrance to their flats and everything. And there was a giant portrait of the Queen that he did in sections with the help of the other neighbours in the pub, in the flats, of young QE2 with a crown on, you know. And that was hung right down the staircase outside. And I can remember the Hornsey Journal coming round, taking pictures of everything, and that was a good memory, because now they've got a blue plaque there, because we congratulations for our coronation decorations of 1953. So still there, Mildura Court, Church Lane, Hornsey, N8. Bandmates, yeah. Well, we were of the same opinion. We did like music, you know, and we formed a band. Really, quite before we knew about the Beatles and people like that, you know. We had a little band. We used to play instrumentals sort of like Shadows instrumentals, FBI and stuff. Like the guy who lived opposite me, he was our drummer. His friend from down the road played guitar as well. And he played rhythm guitar, and I remember I played lead guitar. And then we were down Haringey once with another mate of ours, and he weren't in the band, but when we left the shop, he was in the band because he got on the bus with a bass guitar that we persuaded him to buy, bass guitar in a polythene bag. And I still know Ron. He came round recently and bought me a pair of shoes actually when I couldn't, my walking got bad. I've still got friends from all those years ago. The Beatles made us because we just learnt their songs. We didn't get to have the music. We learnt them by ear. We'd lay on the floor, listen to write all the words down, try and find the chords on the guitar. Often they were wrong, but we play them anyway. We were quite trendy for a young band, you know, that couldn't play, because we weren't played up at the Athenaeum at Muswell Hill, which was this old Victorian theatre, which became a venue for youngsters in its later life. And before we knew it, we were a house band. And in 1963, we were playing Shadows covers with the instrumental, because by then I bought a Fender Stratocaster guitar, which I sold in 1970, and if I'd still had it, should be worth about £28,000 now if I still had it. But there you go. But that was the Beatles gave us work. If you learnt Beatles songs, you got work. Play Twist and Shout, you know, and so you did, and you could work, and so you could go out, and all your mates were jealous because they thought that you were making this extra money, you know, and instead of the little job you had as well, because you worked as well. But you spent all your money on the accessories for the guitar and all that, you know, plectrums and strings, and also if you did get a gig, you'd go out afterwards and at the end and have a curry or something. There are rare curry houses around, places like that. But we lived in Hornsey, and there were a few restaurants there in Turnpike Lane, and Criterion we used to go to, and Britannia restaurant in Turnpike Lane. Yeah, we were pretty young. I lived opposite the top house. It's up the top of Hornsey High Street. I can remember pushing amps down the hill and into the pub to play our first gigs ever, you know, and also around the Railway Tavern, which was round the corner, where we played there. And we did. So it's just playing the fashionable numbers, because we didn't always play the chords right. And I remember we used to bump into older bands. You know, we were 16, 15 even. And these older bands of 23, 24 were a bit more jazzy, you know what I mean? And we'd appreciate them, you know. And we were friendly with them, you know, but they didn't deride us because we weren't as competent as them. Because we were musicians, and musicians tend to get on, you know. I was only in 2 bands in the 60s, but since then I've been playing the last 20 years. I've been in loads of separate little units, you know, jamming around with people. But in those days, you know, the first band broke up. There was a bad argument, not between me and anyone, but I won't mention names now. But it split the band, and we were left on our own. So I don't know. Perhaps pretty selfish. It might have been because a mutual friend of ours, who weren't in our band, he said, "Why you never asked me to join the band?" So we didn't play an instrument. He said, "But no, well, does that matter? I suppose you know, I could have sung or something." I said, "Oh, I didn't know. Sorry." And but he helped me get another job. So I might whether there's a motive there for him or what, I don't know. But I answered an audition, and it was and he had a van, and before I could drive, and it was in 1964, and I had to go all the way down in Hackney, Queensbridge Road, And in the church, there was loads of blokes with guitars, you know, and we all had to do our bit and set up that. And when I came away, I thought there was this one guy on a Gretsch guitar who was really good. You know, he was better than all the rest of us. And I remember when we were driving home, weren't driving, with my mate Doug who was driving her. I said, and I'm surprised when I got in, I got the phone call and he said, you got it, do you want the job? You know. I said, what about the guy with the Gretsch? He said, no, he said he wouldn't fit in with our kind of music, which is all right. Okay, that's a good answer. So I ended up joining them, and they were the band that became Consortium, which is it was Robbie, John, and Bronco, and Fred was a drummer at the time as well, but he left soon after that. And then we went from there. They had lots of work, which I liked about them, but it was a different kind of work from what I was used to playing, because it was better work and the more older songs we would play and everything. And yeah, it was okay. It was all organised and everything. And then I drove. I learned to drive in '65. God, that's a song. I learned to drive in '65. Yeah, but that's one for you, isn't it? And I remember I used to go to gigs. So I used to put my amp on the back seat and the guitar, in this case, on top, and go meet up the van and follow the van all over London. We played. And we played some good places, you know. We played Scottish St James, which is in Mayfair, and places like that, and the Bag of Nails, and eventually, not at the first, but we did have a lot of work, and that was good. So, and they were, and the bass player in the band, who became a good friend. In fact, he ended up being best man at my first wedding. Well, my only wedding. And so, and he was great. He was actually worked for an architect firm, Basil Smith. I can't remember his name now, Basil something. Anyway, he worked for an architect, and he was quite well off. He used to get his suits at Austin Reed but he liked my songs I was writing on the guitar, and he was interested in recording. So he bought some good recorders, Akai and things like that, and eventually a Revox, a Swiss-made reel-to-reel, which is I've still got a couple down in the garage. We did bouncing. You know, we'd I'd play rhythm guitar first, because that's how I realised how the song was, and then we put a vocal on. No, I put a guide vocal on, and then we get Robbie down, because he was the lead singer, and it was a name, but he was a lead singer. But really, anyone can sing lead, you know, if you got the chest, you know. But he was the front man. He was an old-fashioned front man that had the swagger to hold the line, and which was important. I mean, I didn't think I could do it, and B, well, no, I didn't think I could do it, and but I did it in the end. I was fronting the band, you know, and you don't care in the end. But in those days, we had Robbie used to sing. He was a good front man and a good singer he was too. So we had a formula really. So we had a drummer and a bass player, a rhythm guitar, which was Bronco. I played lead guitar, and we also started singing as well. It's funny that, because they all sing, and I would sing in the background, and so all of a sudden we bought a mic. So there's one for you. I said, join in. Oh, great. Okay, so I was in the band then as a singer as well. So yeah, looking back, it was good days. He didn't, but he was similar to me. But it's funny, it's in a different area. You know what I mean? He wasn't interested in music at all. Yeah, when he sang, he sounded good, but he sang low, right? You know. Old Man River and whatever, you know. And he's good. He was okay in the end. Because we had our run-ins because I was a bit of a problem teenager, I guess. You know, how would we win the war with people like you? You know, it was like that, you know, because I couldn't get up in the morning. You know. But he did. Years later, we were playing. This is to say, years later, about 62 or 63, when I was in the first band I was in. We were playing in the intervals between films at these big cinemas. And they'd stop off then and have a little show in between, have an interval, and then come back to the film. And we did one up. We did a cut 2 or 3 or 4. We did the Granada, Edmonton, Granada, Walthamstow, and places like that, you know. And I think it was Walthamstow. My mum came to it, so my mum and dad came to see us play. They came to watch the film really, but they took it, and that was good. So because that's the first time my mum and dad ever saw us play, and they said, yeah, it was good. I remember them saying that. So all peace erupted in the family, you know. So it seemed worthwhile, you know what I mean? Well, we put together a few demos that he made. These demos. You asked the question was, how did we get into the music? And he would splice the reel-to-reel tapes up, and he joined them together, and we took them to Pi Records, sent them to Pi Records, plus a little recording of our live set, of us playing live. And they liked it. It's, you know, it sounds easy, often they don't. It gets thrown in the bin or something. But they liked them, and they said, can we come and see you? And it was this guy called Tony McCauley. And he was a young producer. In fact, he's either a day older or a day younger than me. He's that old now, but he was young at the time, and energetic, public school boy, which gave him the confidence to be in charge. Right, now you go. If you go, you know, they got. I'm in charge, but he was, and he had these songs. He says, "I've got a song for you called Some Other Someday," and we liked it, and. His partner was just John McLeod. He used to play it on the piano, and we met up in Denmark Street, which is what do they call it? Denmark Street in London is famous for music and studios and things, and it's famous for music publishing. He was a publisher. Yeah, we did that song, and he said, "I like your song called Looking Back," he said, and you learn that as well. We go in the studio and record both of them, and whichever one turns out better becomes the A side, and the other one becomes the B side. So we thought, that's a good deal. All right, we'll do that. That's good. And we went in and recorded those 2 tracks at Pi Records, Pi number 1, in 1967. Well, we chose Some Other Someday, but Tony McCauley was that producer. He had this other song and this other band at the time called The Foundations, and he said, I've got this other song, and it was baby, now that I found you, I can't let you go, I'll build my world around you, I love you so, you know. That was just a massive hit. So he was in demand all of a sudden, you know. He's a good songwriter. In fact, he became Britain's Songwriter of the Year about 2 or 3 years running. And he wrote going on to write Build Me Up Buttercup, but I did a few songs with him myself, because he used to write with him. I wrote a few with him, and he mostly changed my songs. He changed just to please Louise, and changed the words, which I didn't like really, but he did. And he had this other song called which the band didn't like. Do don't go, if you go, I don't know why. Anyway, we didn't like it. But we didn't do it, and we didn't want to do it, and we gave him the ump, which was damn stupid, really, because he was good, but he was still hanging around. He was still around. He didn't have us, and he passed us off to this other producer, and we recorded All Love in the World with him, this other producer, and it was awful. I can remember a time in It was in 1966. It was the height of the old band, just before we signed the contract. And we were working like crazy, and we liked the Beach Boys because we could emulate them, not emulate them, but we could copy their style, I mean, they had 5 or 6 singers, and we had that. Well, we have 4 or 5, and we could do that. We didn't understand everything about harmony, but we did, we could harmonise, and so we could ba 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 and ba 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 ba, and they all come in. We'd do those harmony things quite easy. Sing it in the van on the way to gigs, and so we did like the Beach Boys, and when they came out with the album Pet Sounds, we loved that. We bought that, and there were songs on there that were fantastic. One of the best ones was God Only Knows. And but we used to play on BBC on the radio. We used to record at Delaware Road Studios in Maida Vale, which is still there, or at Paris Studio in London. And so we had loads of those. And I can remember we recorded at BBC. We did "Wouldn't It Be Nice," which was the first song on Pet Sounds, followed by the second song on Pet Sounds, which is I know perfectly well. So a song like that, and we did that live on the. But we were finding fault with it, but they were really pleased. No, it's okay, it's all right, it's all right. Because the Beach Boys were, we just ran the mic. And but there are some out there still, of recordings out there, and there's one I've heard. And when I heard it back all these years later, I thought, well, that's all right, that's okay. What am I worried about? Could be one of those songs off of Pet Sounds. If it be God Only Knows, I suppose if it's a slow song. But then I like the Beatles, and just after that, they were rivals of the Beach Boys, and they made their Revolver album, which I think was their best album, and they had terrific songs on there, and one of them was Eleanor Rigby, and that was really different for the time. They released it. The B-side was the Yellow Submarine, I think, which is still a good song, but I don't know, it'd be either Eleanor Rigby, I think, I don't know. Long and Winding. I say the Beatles because I'm a big fan of them. I also like David Bowie later on, and I used to play a lot of his stuff in recent years. But this was good memory, because we were playing at the Roundhouse, the Roundhouse in Camden, and head of Pye Records, a guy called Cyril Stapleton, lived up Hampstead, up the road, just behind the Roundhouse, off England's Lane, just off of Hampstead up there. And he said he came down to stuck his head in the door to see us. And he liked All Love in the World when we performed it live there. And it was a good crowd and everything. And he came over, he said, I'm sorry, but we knew him anyway, because we'd seen his face before we knew he was the head producer at Pye. And he says, I'll take you up, I'd like to record that again. I said, yeah, we want to do it again as well. We don't like what the other guy's done, really. It's just not us. So he took over our recording, but it was almost disastrous in a way. He overproduced everything, but it don't matter. Now, looking back, it don't matter. But that was Cyril Stapleton, and he died quite young, because he was only in his 50s when he died, so he must have been about 40 at the time when he told us. And yeah, that was it really, but we made a lot of records up there. Well, it was all American. There was a British side to it, but they just make imitation records of the American records. People like Marty Wilde, Tommy Steele, Cliff Richard. Cliff Richard was all right, because he had a good band with the Shadows, but he was good. Now, it was the Beatles that really changed me, They, wow, it was wow, and I got really interested. My mate bought, we all bought the single. I can remember the single was Please Please Me. It didn't buy Love Me Do, that went over my head anyway. But Please Please Me was struck home, and I know I turned it over and I heard a song called Ask Me Why, which was very good, I thought, and still think it's good today. And I remember saying to my drummer who lived next door, I said, Did you play Ask Me Why? He said, yeah, it's good, isn't it? I said, yeah, it's very good. They're good, aren't they? That's like an American vocal sound, vocal group sound. I said, dum, 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 I love you. Oh, do you remember it? Woo, 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 because whoa, 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 all that stuff. That was happening in America with bands like, and I can't remember their name, but they're fabulous record. Some of the Americans were making. They were ahead of it, that was their music. Yeah, good memories now, looking back, because I remember these cinemas were massive. They held about 2,000 or 3,000 people. And I remember we looked out behind the curtains to see what the audience is. There's a lot of people there. And all we could see was rows and rows of people. So we had a manager then, and he was a bit older than us, a couple of years older. And he said, oh, calm down, because we kept going to the toilet. Wondered what it was. It was fear, wasn't it? And so he came round and he had these little purple pills called Purple Hearts. They were illegal, really. But we took them so we could get through the gig. Well, before we were playing, we had to play with the Hollies. Because we did play with lots of other bands. We played with Procol Harum and also Slade. We played with those loads of times. Great kids, the Slade, 4 of them. And we supported them loads. No, it was the other way around. They supported us, would you believe? But it was before they were famous. And they were called Ambrose Slade. And then, and we used to chat to them. We used to like chatting to successful bands because you pick up things. And but I remember we were looking forward to it was in Holland we were, and we were playing with the Hollies, who were massive in the 60s. They were absolutely massive. It went Beatles, Stones, Who, Hollies. It was really that, and they were right up there. Now they're sadly, I don't know. And we ended up playing. There was this field, and in Holland. And all we could see was loads of people, you know what I mean? But it weren't like Woodstock. They were in patches, There weren't that many people like you see now. And but there was a lot there. But the Hollies arrived by limousine. All their gear was set up already, and they just ran on, grabbed their guitars, played, and exited the same way. They disappeared. Buggered off, And we wanted to chat to them, really. But that was a memorable one. But I remember the Dutch guy saying they're Germans, so he come across and the actual gig was in Germany. It must have been right on the borders of the Netherlands and West Germany as it was then. So anyway, but all nice people. Everyone was so friendly after the war. I suppose it was an overreaction. Everyone was so nice. We played these American basses, and we just nicked their Jeeps, and take the diesel out of the Jeep next to it and siphon them out and fill them up, and in our van, and we could go, but they didn't notice, because we take a little bit from every Jeep we could. The Americans were good. Americans were really nice people, I remember that. I remember thinking that. They were good. They used to bang on we slept in the van for a month in February in La Rochelle in France when we played there. And it was right down where the submarine pens were that the Germans had built because they had occupied France. And these submarines used to come out from and attack our ships and the American ships from this western France where the submarines were, La Rochelle it is. And we went for a trip up there to see them, with these American guys, and they were nice as pie. In fact, they used to bang us up in the morning, bang on our van because we were sleeping in the van, and they bring us coffee and ham and toast. and everything. And then one day, one of them said, "We're off. We're off to Vietnam." Oh right, I was never thinking that only half of them would come back. Didn't register to us then because it's before the event, I guess. But I remember them being really nice people. And when America, like Trump now says, "Oh, we want America to be great again." Well, they've always been great. They're the richest country around. But I don't know what he means, but they were great then. The people that came out of America. John Wayne. Yeah, he was at Pi Records. I never met him there. Although a manager that still says to today, I saw the manager the other day. If anyone mentions David Bowie, he still owes me 4p. You know, the old pennies. They gave to him for a phone call he made in the 60s. I don't remember, David Jones, I think he was called then, when he changed his name, because David Jones was the name of the lead singer of the Monkees, the American band, you know. Hey, oh, we're the Monkees, don't know them. People say we monkey around, all that rubbish. It was all right though, you know, it's sing-along pop. It was all right. Well, yeah, I love music really. I suppose if I don't like any music out there, I just don't listen to it. I don't listen to music as much as I used to. I tend to listen to talk radio, you know, about politics and other rubbish. But I mean, some of it's really good, but some of it, it's a formula. I heard someone say, just do a formula, which I'm not so keen on really, but this all seems all right. If I don't like it, I don't listen to it really. So what music are you into then? David Bowie. I always liked him and that sort of thing. But when I listen to new music, as I say, I watched Glastonbury, and I like some people on Glastonbury, newcomer. What's his name? Who's our guy? He's very competent, good guitarist, terrific guitarist, and a good singer. Sam Fender, is it? Yeah. No, he's obviously very good. He's going to be one of ours. They're going to grab hold of him and stick him out there for as long as they can. He's got to keep coming up with the songs. My time was 60s, a little bit of 70s, not much, because by the time I was writing songs with Pi, it was the 70s, and we were writing songs. But the 70s, there was some great stuff going on in the 70s. I mean, David Bowie's album, Hunky Dory, is really, really good. But it's like a 60s album to me. It's the way it's laid out, you know. If you play it on vinyl, I've got it on vinyl. When I used to play it, I remember thinking what I thought at the time. It's like, I liked it. Yeah, well, that song would always get covered. Such a good song. So, good for the songwriter. I mean, it's good that was his, the writer. I remember him, a lovely, clear, high voice. And used to do that song over there, over the club. It's a good song, so it's going to be covered. People cover the songs. Once you publish the song and put it out there to the world, you say goodbye to it. Because the publishers own it, really. They can do what they want with it. Yeah, we were in Paris because we just had the record out, and we got to the studio, and there's an organ there, and the guy said, "Who plays organ?" I said, "Oh, but I play guitar as well." He said, "Well, it's only miming." I said, "Yeah, that's an idea." So I said, "We'll mime it." And then Bongo said, "Oh, I'll borrow your guitar." So he borrowed my Gibson. He played on that. Because you normally say big guitar he had. And we just mimed it. And I did say to the cameraman, I said, "Move around a bit so it looks like you're playing." So I just mimed it. And there's been loads of comments about the drummers not playing and that, terrible. I says, we're miming. We had a new manager there by then, because we sacked our old manager, which was a mistake, Ken, and we got this new manager, who was also the manager of Foundations, and he booked us this 6-week tour of Italy, and but my wife had just had twins. I didn't want to go anyway, and my wife Sylvie didn't want us to go. She had her arms full anyway, you know, with the twins and everything, and so I said I can't do that, you know. And the funny thing is, they came round that morning when we were leaving, and knocked on the door. Said, "Come on, we're going now." So I can't go. I said, "No, I can't go." And Sylvie came out with the twins in her arm. Said, "No, you can't go. You can't leave me. I can't. No, not for 6 weeks." So I decided I'm not going. I said, "We'll catch up later." But six weeks later, when they came back from Italy, I'd moved on. More perhaps than they'd moved on. They did all right because they had Billy Mangum in the band by then, who took my place, and so they had one guitarist, one bass player, you know, and they'd also when they got back, they'd hired a keyboard player. But anyway, when I went, that was after. But before that, they come around. I got a message to go and see. Phone call, I guess it was, because they still had phones in those days, you know. Got to meet up at the new manager's place in Westbourne Grove, and but by then, I'd been working for Pie Records, because they gave me a job as a songwriter at Pie Records, because they wanted to replicate the Brill Building in New York, where they got writers like Neil Sedaka and Neil Diamond and all that, Carole King, where they're all working in the same room, swapping ideas and everything. And it was a magic place in New York, Brill Building. They wanted to emulate that with the people they had. I mean, Tony was there, of course. He was one of the leading lights of it. I mean, Tony Hatch as well, and other songwriters. And it was a magic time. You worked 1 day a week, and that was only for 2 or 3 hours. Then you ended up in the pub in Upper Berkeley Street, because it's just round the back of Pie Records, which was in near Marble Arch. And you meet all different people in there, and it was a haven of songwriters and producers and everything. I like the 80s because I was working as a cab driver then, and I was pretty starstruck because I keep picking up these celebrities, you know. A lot of us, I picked up Bananarama loads of times. A girl called Karen, is it? And one of them, Bananarama. And they're all from Camden, you know, so I just had to drive up and down Camden High Road, and you pick all these up. And what's his name? I picked it up? Oh, it's embarrassing. What's his name from Madness? Suggs, dreadful. I felt so bad about it. I said, "Oh, Suggs, can I have an autograph, please, for my daughter?" So he said, "Of course you can, yeah." So he's sitting there with his elbows through the window, and gave me the autograph. I said, "Oh, great, that's terrific." And he's still sitting there with his arms through the window. And I'm going, "Yeah, you all right? All right, yeah. Yeah, I'm just waiting for me change," he says. I felt terrible. I forgot about it. That's all right, mate, it's easily done. But I did feel bad about it. He's a nice enough fellow. They're all nice out there, really. Robbie Williams I used to pick up a lot of times. He was right, seemed very insecure. You wouldn't believe it, considering he's in a boy band, wasn't he? So, but what's the other guy who wrote some good songs? Da 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 da. I just want you back for good. That was Gary Barlow, wasn't it? Yeah, that's a good song in any time. Yeah, it was just the same one I said about the. I picked said go to Melbourne Station, pick up he's waiting there for a coach, but you got to take him when the coach comes in. You know, you get on the coach. I can't remember now. Oh, no, I took him to him and the young studio assistant, young girl, and he was flirting with her. That's all, but he was trying to involve me in the conversation, which is all right. He says, "Can you take us to Gretna Green now? How much, cabby, and all this, you know?" Yeah. So where do you want to go to Gretna Green for? Pop stars get married over the road, and because we're right dead opposite to Marylebone Town Hall, which is where a lot of pop stars got married. And he ended up getting married there with Patsy Kensit. So maybe you heard it from me, maybe not. Because I got back to doing music again, because I didn't do it for years, because I had a lot of friends, they were cab drivers, you know what I mean, we used to drink up on a Sunday morning and all that, and we go out New Year's Eve, and I say, I used to be in a band, and they say, no, you didn't. And I said, all right, I didn't, I don't mind, you know. But then I remember saying to him one New Year's Eve, I just got to get back into music. And I did. I got it doing again, and I ended up hosting Live at the Club, which is at Enfield Cricket Club. And I know it's recent years, but it was a very successful period for me. You know, I met loads of different people, and it was like an open mic night, everything, and I love running that. And I did it for 5 years, from all through 2015 right up to 2019. And I stopped for 2020. I handed it over to my mate, another guitarist, Stuart Bell. And just at that point, in March of 2020, of course, was the lockdown and the COVID. So that put paid to that. And he couldn't carry it on. But I carried on in different, so did he. And we used to go out with other people were doing it. And a girl called Ruth Magnola, what's her name? Yeah, she's brilliant. She's a brilliant singer, and she was a lecturer at Southgate College. So she had it all, but she used to do it by the book. You know, you had 2 songs, blah 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 blah. And she's still out there doing it now. She's brilliant. I can't now because I've got something called ankylosing spondylitis, and it's connected to a gene I've got. I never knew this. HLA-B27, the gene number. And if you got that, my daughter's got it, but she hasn't got ankylosing spondylitis. It's not necessary that she'll get it, but she's at risk, and anyone else in the family. But I've only met one other person who's got it, and that was when it got into my eyes, and I was sitting at Moorfields Hospital waiting to have an operation on my eyes. And I spoke to a girl next to me, and she said, I've got ankylosing spondylitis. And she said, no, you haven't. Just like, no, I haven't. She said, I've got that, and it's very, 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 very rare. I said, well, so have I. But you would meet, if you're going to meet somewhere, you'd meet at Moorfields, weren't you? And she had iritis, I had iritis. So anyway, it's come back to curse me now, and it's gone into my hands, which stopped me from playing. And my legs and arms and everything. So that's been a problem. Yeah, I would say always be yourself, and always. I say I never made it, but I have had a good life out of music. So in a way, I have, because I kept faith with the actual the guitar and the playing live and the things like that, playing music. Be remembered. Oh, what do you mean regarding music?
Anything.
No, see, because I packed up music for ages, and I've only just come back to it 20 years ago, really. That seems so far back. You know, I was 60 then, so I was old then, 60 something. But and you know, but I really did. I am pleased that I went back to music, got it going again, and even re-recorded some of the old songs that were written, and got them out of those books I showed you, and re-recorded them because once I started playing them, I could remember them slightly. They might be slightly different, but. And I recorded a lot of things like These Awesome Trees. I don't know if you know that song. We used to play it, but those demos we took to Pie Records and got a contract with. We never got them back from Pie Records, so we lost them. There was These Autumn Trees, Nothing Lasts These Days, things like that, you know, gone away. And but I managed to re-record them. I Think It's Gonna Rain. I think it's gonna rain. I mean, it doesn't sound original, does it? But that one was, yeah. So, I don't know, but I just hope that it does. It wasn't. Hope it was worthwhile for someone like. I've left all the stuff to your dad and his sister. What he does with it's up to. Not that he can, but the material, the amps and all that. But if you want it, you take precedence. You know. I'd like to see it, you know.
You used to be fairly late all the time, and you were late for the round, and you got to Wonderloaf and somebody packed your
Yeah, that's bad.
No, you tell Ian.
No, that's bad because sort of, I didn't check the load and it all fell out the back of the van on the Cambridge Road on the A10. And when I turned round, someone said, "You've lost your load." Pulled up beside me, so I went round the roundabout, went back down, and when I looked over, there's a guy sitting in the pile of breads. But that's just a bad accident, and I got done for that. Unsafe load. It's my responsibility.
Yeah, well, no, you didn't load it, but your responsibility.
I said the boss, my boss, the company rather, they ducked out of it.
Did they?
Yeah, it's always the driver's responsibility. So it should be. So I did 4 years in prison.
No, you didn't.
I went to, a gig, didn't I? My friend liked Geoff, but I ended up in the night, Geoff taking me home.
And Nod mate.
Which was a bit naughty.
Cause I believe serenity is by the bridge across the water.